Evening all. Hope everyone's having a good January so far, even though there's a regime in place. Well, a walk with a cup of tea. A few interesting subjects I've been speaking to people about in the last few days. One of them being an industry that I worked in for a long time. The offshore industry. And this person asked me my views on it and why I wouldn't go back to it. We're all aware of what kind of money can be made in that industry in certain countries, but the reason is this. I feel strongly enough about the taboo surrounding mental health that I'm prepared to talk about it openly and take the flack and the criticism that comes with that. So I would be a hypocrite to go back to an industry that in the North Sea alone is absolutely pig ignorant to the mental health stigma and the mental health crisis, mainly in men in the North Sea, because it's predominantly men that's out there. There are some women, but they're not in anywhere near the numbers of the men. Now the reason I say that is this. It's quite simple. If you are offshore, no matter what anybody says, no matter what any company rep, union or anybody says, and you suggest that you have some mental health issues, or if you go to an offshore doctor and suggest you're depressed or anything like that, or a superior or anyone gets wind of you being a bit down, I can guarantee you categorically you will not get out on your next trip. So for those that don't understand the North Sea, it's trip to trip when you're a contractor. Get a little more security as core crew or as staff, but most guys are contractors in the North Sea, so they're kind of self-employed. So when the hierarchy get wind of somebody being down, you get a thing called NRB'd, not required back. So you'll go home thinking you're going back in a month and a phone call will come, we don't need you back, because they're so paranoid about someone committing suicide. It happens in the North Sea. I've been in platforms where young guys have took their lives. Actually helped set up a young guy before in the North Sea, a young driller. He was out to set up some subsea stuff, and I landed all his kit for him and spoke to him, had a cup of tea with him, and that night he went in his room and took his own life. Absolutely tragic, shocking event, but no more shocking than any of the other events that I've been involved with over the years with guys. So the reason I wouldn't go back to it for any amount of money is because of that. That's simple. And I'd be a hypocrite to go back to it for any amount of money. And people go, oh, that's crazy because you can make a fortune. Do you need to be making a fortune? Does everybody have to be making a fortune? I don't think so, because what do you need? What do you need in life? What do you need to be moderately happy and content? You need food, shelter, you need people around you, and a bit of balance. That's it. 3 or 4 things that you need. To achieve that, you don't need a lot of money. You don't need a lot of money. I've been motivated by money at times in my life because I was naive and I thought that was the right thing. Because when you've got a family, you want to give them everything that you think that they need. But in turn, you deny them the thing that they probably want the most, which is you to be there, because you're away for 10 months of the year. So falling into the money trap can be very, very detrimental to your mental health, whether you believe it or not. I've experienced it. I know literally hundreds of men that have experienced it. Breakdowns in relationships, going off the rails, becoming alcohol dependent, drug dependent, sleeping tablet dependent, you know, street Valium dependent, all the shit of the day that you can obtain quite easily anywhere in Glasgow, anywhere in England, and they become dependent on it because their mental health suffering, because they're in an industry that, for one, they hate, two, they feel tied to because of the financial anchor. You get used to the money. You take on the bigger house, you take on the bigger car, you take on the second car, you maybe take on another couple of things, you know, investments and stuff, and you then have to honour them. Because if you don't, you think that you're a failure. So you've tripped yourself up on every front. You've convinced yourself if you stop making 70 or 80 or 90 grand a year or 100 grand that you're a failure, and that 25 grand in here is not enough. I was never any happier on 100 grand a year than I was on 3 times less. So it doesn't do anything for you. It's a total myth. The industry's a myth, and those that are the top tier out in the industry, the senior management in the North Sea, it's a dinosaur industry. Guys are terrified about their next trip. Grown men terrified. There's nothing, for me these days, I get embarrassed listening to guys that are terrified of losing their jobs. And I mean that, I'll say it again, I get embarrassed for them. Why? Because they need to man up and they need to say to themselves, right, wait a minute, yous don't control me. I'm here volunteering my time for you guys. I'm here volunteering my life and my time to this industry. I deserve more respect. But that industry works like this. You go out on your trip, you work like a dog, you get abused, and you're not allowed to open your mouth or you're blackballed. Anybody that's in the industry that wants to comment on this, I'll respond to you with your opinion, because I'm interested in your opinions, and you know, opinions do vary. This is mine, and it's a very, very funny subject because people sometimes defend the thing that pays their living because they feel obliged to. That's a shackle, that's an anchor in itself. Defending an industry that's very poorly run and very poorly considered. There's no consideration for anyone out there. I lost a relative. It's my godmother. It's very close to her all my life, and she's a big part of my life. And I was in a position in the the Middle East, in Iraq, where I should have. One of my only regrets is that I wasn't at her funeral, because the job was about to collapse, and I was basically told, if you don't come out, bear in mind I missed a couple of days of my trip, and I had given an arm and a leg to the project, doing 3-monthers, you know, doing 15, 16 week trips, home for 10 days and back out for another 12 weeks, killing myself for them. And then I realised when I asked about that, they were like, no, you need to come, because they knew I was a worker. And I went out there, and then when I got there, I thought, you fucking rats, man. And I've never been so scunnered with myself for missing that funeral. There's no consideration for you. You are a number, and that's it. And you'll only ever be a number in the offshore industry. Don't care who you are or how high up you get. We pretty much represented ourselves in it. We were quite a tight little group, and my mates have suffered as well. And one of my mates has been treated like shit in that industry, and he gave 25 years to it, and he is a worker. He is a grafter. There's few like him. Few would match his work rate. And when me and him worked together, we worked like dogs. You know, from Africa to the North Sea to Iraq. We worked very hard. England, Rotterdam's, you know, everywhere we went, we worked like dogs, because that's who we are. And he has been treated like shit by people that over the years he's helped and helped and helped again. And that's, I'm sure he'll agree with me on that one. It's a terrible industry for treating men who give their lives to it like absolute shit. And there's a reason for that, and it's probably because your superiors in the company thinking, well, you're getting paid enough, so you'll just accept it and you'll just take it, and we'll talk to you any way you like, and fuck your family, and we don't care that you've got kids and all the rest of it. And that's why it's just such a horrible game to be in. And if anyone that's in the game actually sits down and writes it in paper, the pros and the cons will far outweigh the pros. There's very few positives in that industry. You get used to the money, that's about it, but money is not the answer to happiness. So I'm having an interesting chat with somebody just now who is in the industry and they're thinking about coming out of it, and they asked me some questions. How did I do that? I improvised. I'm quite naturally entrepreneurial, so bits and bobs, property game, you know, stuff like that. I put my mind to something and I'm not scared of failure. A lot of people will tell you they're not scared of failure, but they still are, until you actually learn to deal with fear properly. Deal with fear. You can only do that by really understanding it. You have to be fearful in order to beat it and defeat it. You have to be fearful of something in order to learn how to control it and manage it. Once you do that, you can then honestly tell yourself, well, I'm actually no fearful of financial burdens and financial commitments and all the rest of it. I'll find a way. And if you're positive enough a person and you're a committed enough person and you have ability and instinct, you'll do well in anything. So you shouldn't be letting anyone convince you that your lot in life is the one you're currently tied to. That's kind of my take on it. And it's worked for me. It's not always rosy. You know, this year, if anything, destroyed some good things I had going. And that's just life. It destroyed stuff for a lot of people. So don't sit there and go, oh, I'm getting hard done by. Everybody's getting hard done by. Everybody. And you can say we're all in the same boat. We're not all in the same boat, but we're all in the same storm. That's for sure. So, yep, we just have to weather the storm. Weather the storm. Other opportunities will come. Cut down all your outgoings. Cut down everything that you can that you don't need. Get rid of all the crap out of your life. And you know, what would £100 a month Sky subscription, what would doing without that for 6 months? It's not a big deal, is it? 6 months, do about £100 a month. That keeps you in food. So just you can live. It's amazing what you can live on if you improvise and you adapt to what's round about you. So financial burdens are a big anchor. They're a major weight, and it's one of the triggers for real mental health issues is financial burden. And I feel for a lot of people that still have that burden, that are still anchored by it because they feel an obligation to family or commitment, and that's, you know, that's understandable. It's a strong culture. It's a very hard kind of habit to break, to step away from that money. But it is only money, and if it's damaging you, then only you can tell yourself, right, wait a minute, this is doing my health no good. I'm not in a good frame of mind here because of this. I need change. So that's what we go back to when you're ready to be honest with yourself. It wasn't an industry I enjoyed. The only thing I enjoyed about it was I liked the team I worked with. Because we varied, we were from different parts of the country, but we worked well together. Yeah, we argued and we fought and there was fallouts, and that's work, that's business, that's life. But we were a good team, and give or take a few blips, we had each other's backs, you know. And that's very important in any industry, especially when you're a small team and you're under pressure and you're under the microscope, and you know there's budgets and there's money and stuff involved, restraints. So it's an interesting topic. You know, I could talk about it for hours because it's an industry I know. I went into it when I left the services with my best mate. You know, he basically opened the door for me and got me on board. And then you have to earn your position by being a grafter, and we worked hard. We did, you know, we were out in West Africa and stuff, and back 15 years ago, maybe longer. And we sweated it, you know, we put a sweat in because we knew it was a good thing, and we knew that people were always watching young guys to see what their metal is and see what they're made of. So we always gave a good account of ourselves, and I think we were always fair with people, and we had generally a good reputation, you know. But it's interesting when people tell me that they want out of the industry, but they're fearful. You have to master that fear. You've got to master it. And if you're kidding yourself on and saying, right, I'm ready to go for it, and you still have the fear, don't even say it. Just take a bit more time. Don't just jump. You know, you have to make the transition. It's got to be done correctly, or it too could damage your mindset and damage your train of thought and damage your momentum. And everything's the same machine. It all works in sync. You know, if there's a pressure here, or there's an issue here, or there's a blip here, or a slip up there, it's all in the mind. Everything's in the head. You know, the body follows, but everything's in the head. So if you've got issues, those issues are going to affect you. So you have to try and make it smooth for yourself. I'm not just saying just jump off the chopper in your next trip and never go back. That would just be silly. Transition, try and search some options out. The offshore industry gives you enough time at home where you can have a second income, but it also gives you enough time at home where you can sit and look and get out and get on your toes and go, right, I need to see what is available to me here. You know, there's Open University, there's courses, there's this, there's that. There's so many things now that people can earn livings from. There's all sorts of platforms, you know. There's so many ways to earn livings. Even although the economy's damaged, there's still money out there. There's still living. You know, there's still momentum. There's still a world out there that jobs need done in. So don't be tied. It's a horrible industry. I really dislike it. I dislike it for its treatment of people that gave a lot longer to it than I did. I dislike that, and I dislike a lot the loyalty side of it is quite questionable. You know, I know a mate of mine get plenty of people always answered emails, always kept. He used to say to me, always drop people an email, Alex. You know, at Christmas time, always, even guys you've not worked with in 5 years, drop them an email. I went, right, that's okay, and I still do it because he said it, and he was right. He's like, you might need them one day, or they might need you. But if you just go 5 years, I've not heard from you and you're asking me for a job. Whereas if we every 3 months a wee text, that breaks the ice. Listen, you know, I'm a wee bit stuck, can you help me? And I don't see him getting that for people that he worked very hard with and for, and gave them a punt up, gave them a help up. That kind of pisses me off. It's not something him and I have discussed in great detail, but he probably knows my feelings on it. Anyway, enough about that. That's another story. So if you're thinking about jumping out of it, by all means, you know, have a think about your options. Maybe have a little buffer there, you know, a couple of quid in the bank, put away for the rainy day or for the transition period. But don't be bound by anything. Don't be bound by anything that relates back to fear. Fear of failure. Not everything I do works, but you've got to try. And if you sit back and just say, oh, I'll just keep doing this, your life's going to pass you by very, very quickly, and before you know it, you'll have all these regrets anyway. That's just not worth it. That's not what life's about. Life is about risk. No risk, no reward. No guts, no glory. Whatever way you want to put it. So there you go, that's it. As I say, I could talk about it for much longer, and maybe I will in the future, but I'm just interested in the fact a few people have asked. Somebody in particular is looking at leaving and just asked me my kind of views on it and stuff, and I've just been honest and saying, well, that's kind of it. I just don't like the fact that they don't handle people's problems very well. You're almost insignificant. It's as if, what are you doing bringing a problem onto the platform? Why are you bringing a problem onto the job? How dare you? What, am I not allowed to be human? Am I not allowed to have a relative that passes away? Is my partner not allowed to be ill? Is my kid not allowed to have a broken wrist or something and have to go home? It's frowned upon, and they hate it and they don't like it. and everything's down to the dollar, and they basically say, oh, it's an extra flight, you know, we don't like you for that, or you took 4 days off and we had to keep somebody on, or we lost your bed, or there's a lot of things, a lot of problems in that industry. It's quite inhuman at times. Aye, it's quite inhuman at times. And when you see the guys coming off the choppers after 2 and 3 weeks, that mentality of grabbing a bag of cans or a carry out for the train home or down for Aberdeen or whatever, that mentality is still massive. It's the blow off the steam thing. You know, nobody should be leaving their work and be that stressed and that down and that having the head burst mentality that their first train of thought before they even see their kids is, I'm going to get steaming out my mind, or I'm going to go and buy a bag of Coke, or I'm going to, do you know what I mean? This crazy mentality that booze solves all your problems. It's one big vicious circle. It's damaging. Would it not be better to take a financial reduction, have less stress, have a better quality of life, and have some balance? Maybe I'm wrong. Tell me to shut up by all accounts, but aye, it's interesting. And as I say, it's quite a hot topic because it's an industry that a lot of young guys message me about and they still want to get into it. And I these days, I don't recommend it to anybody these days. I just don't. I don't want involved. It's a decision you need to make yourself. It's like the services. I've only ever really recommended one young guy to go for the services because I really knew it was in him. Joined the same outfit that I was in, the Royal Marines, and you know, I knew he was made for it. But most people, I would say, well, that's your decision. It's not mine. It's not a decision you can make for somebody. You can only give your version of events. So there we go. We're nearly into the middle of January, and I hope everybody's starting to get healthy and get in shape and get a bit of focus, because the year flies in quick, but the summer soon. Anyway, right guys, that's enough for the night. It's a hot topic, but I hope somebody takes something from that. By all means, stick something in the comments and I'll respond. Okay, good night, thank you.